Welcome back to my channel Nirmalendu. Please like, share and subscribe my channel by clicking on the bell icon. Thank you. In my last video, I have discussed the poem Westminster Bridge in detail. Now today, we will have a quick recap of the entire poem. We will be discussing the summary of the poem as well as all the probable questions and the model answers. I will just tell you all to please listen to my words carefully and note whatever I have tried to write down for your benefit. I will go through the summary first. I will concentrate on the figure of speech, the figurative words that have been used in the poem and their meanings underneath, and we will also do several questions along with their model answers. So let's start with William Wordsworth's composed upon Westminster Bridge. Remember, students, the context. William Wordsworth along with his sister Dorothy were going to France and they were passing through the Westminster Bridge. The time was dawn, the early morning, and the scenario, the morning scenario, the description of the morning scenario. We in early morning find enchanted. We are enchanted in the morning beauty. Remember, if you walk through the morning scenario, you just get mesmerized at the morning beauty of the hour. So likewise, the poet also, while going through the Westminster Bridge, came across such wonderful scenic beauties that he was attracted so much, and his heart was filled with it, with all the possible scenarios, with all the possible beauties of nature. Now to have a summary of this particular poem, let us concentrate once again on the lines, intra-lines. We have to understand the meaning of each and every word. We have to understand, remember, the imagery used, all the figure of speech that the poet has used throughout the poem. So let's start the summary. The poem begins with the note that earth has not anything to show more beautiful, more fair than the morning scenario of London from the Westminster Bridge. So the poet along with his sister were on the Westminster Bridge, from where they eyewitnessed the morning scenarios of London in that particular hour of the morning. The poet repeatedly says that only a fool or the most unfortunate person can avoid such a marvelous sight. So, if one could pass by, he would be dull. He would be the most unfortunate one according to the poet, as he finds his description throughout the poem. The city of London has been compared time and again with several objects, earthly objects. We find first of all that the city has been compared with a beautiful girl wearing a garment, a beautiful garment. So we have come across personification. Remember the figure of speech that I had told you that particular day while I was going through this poem in my earlier video. The din and bustle of the city has not started yet. The city is open into the fields and under the vast sky. The landmarks like the St. Paul's Cathedral, the other chapels, that the poet has used the word temples, remember? The other chapels, the Tower of London, the amphitheatre are all visible in the bright morning sunshine. In his words, in his own words, that have been glittering. So all are bright, all looks bright and glittering in the morning sunshine, morning sun rays. And then an absolute silence intermingled with a peace and tranquility reigns everywhere. An absolute silence, full of calmness, full of peace and tranquility. So it reigns everywhere. And the poet in this context uses hyperboles in expression like never did sun more beautifully steep, or again in near saw I never felt. We have Anaphora, remember? In this particular expression also, the Thames being free from the river traffic flows on its leisurely way. The poet, last of all, we find apostrophizes God for such a wonderful, majestic scenario with the houses being asleep and the powerful London city lying still. So this is the entire summary. I have written it in my video. You will see it, you will go through it and try to grasp the meaning underneath. Remember that. Now let us have a quick look at some of the characteristics or features of this poem. We have come across several words which we ought to concentrate more to have a total understanding on the theme of the poem. You have to go through the poem, and not only so, you have to go through the meaning of the poem also. And for that, you need to know some basic features of the poem. First, let's have a quick recap, a quick recapitulation of what we did earlier. It's a Petrarchan sonnet. The sonnet, first of all, it is a sonnet, 14-lined poem. Secondly, it is a Petrarchan sonnet comprising of 2 stanzas, one of 8 lines, that is called octave part, and the other of 6 lines called sestet. Then the rhyme scheme. To look at the rhyme scheme, we have in this poem A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, C, D, C, D. Remember that? The meter or rhyme pattern followed in the poem is Lowe's iambic pentameter. Most lines. Now what is iambic pentameter? I am giving you a glimpse of what an iambic pentameter is. Look at the line. Most lines in this particular poem follow a pattern of the 5 pairs of unstressed and stressed beats. On the one hand, we have unstressed beats, and on the other, we will have the stressed beats. For example, a side so touch in its majesty. I have given everything here in this video. You can go through it. Then look at the hyperboles. Look at the figure of speech and the poetic device that is used in the poem by the poet William Wordsworth. First thing I should make a note is that of hyperbole. That is the use of over-exaggeration to emphasize a point. Now, if we go through the lines, we will have several such examples. I am giving you some examples. Earth has not anything to show more fair. So he has compared the tower, the dome, the river Thames to be the fairest object in that particular hour of the morning. So London city, the city of London has been so much exaggerated, over-exaggerated. That is why it is called hyperbole. We find hyperbole in the very first line. Earth is not anything to show more fair. And again, secondly, I can cite example of never did the sun more beautifully steep. So, the sun rays have been flowing and the entire landscape are soaked in the morning sun rays. So that is another example of hyperbole being used in this particular poem. Then look at the other kind of figure of speech like simile. What is a simile? This is also a figure of speech, students, that we use to compare two unlike things. Now, for example, here in this line we find the kind of simile. This city now doth like a garment to wear. This city now doth like a garment to wear. Like a garment. So, the city has been compared with a beautiful young girl wearing garment. So, like a garment, there has been a comparison. So, it's compared. So, this is called simile. Then again, time and again we find the use of personification in the poem from the very first line. What is personification? Let's have a quick recap. When a thing or abstraction is represented as a person, when a thing or abstraction is represented as a person. Now here if we go through the lines, we can have several examples of personification being used in the poem. For example, number 1. This city now doth like a garment to wear the beauty of morning, silent, bare. Then we find in this line that the poet personifies the city of London as a girl wearing beautiful dresses, beautiful clothes, garment. Secondly, the river. We can have the example of this personification towards the end of the poem, when we find the river glideth at his own sweet will. So the river is represented here again as a being with restraint. So the houses, again, the houses seem asleep. So in this line, again we have the use of personification. The houses are personified as people lying asleep. Then I can cite another example, students, of personification. Example number 4. Look at this line. And all that mighty heart is lying still. Towards the closure of the poem, end of the poem. The mighty heart or the powerful city of London is represented as a person who is fast asleep. Then let us just move forward. We have several other such poetic devices and figure of speech used in the poem. For example, alliteration. We come across alliteration. Remember what is alliteration? I have repeatedly told you. Remember the definition? The occurrence of same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent words. The two interconnected words. For example, here, a sight so touching in its majesty. Again, example 2, dull would he be of soul who could pass by. So in these two separate lines, you will have the use of the letter like S, the letter like H, the letter like B repeatedly. So this is called the occurrence of same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent words. This is another word called alliteration. Then coming to another figure of speech that is used throughout the poem. Imagery, the most important one. The most important figure of speech that we come across in the poem is no other than imagery. The figure of speech, what is an imagery? What an imagery is? Let us concentrate on its definition in its simplest form. The figure of speech that is used to evoke a sensory in the reader experience. That is used to evoke a sensory in the reader experience. For example, in the line all bright till the smokeless air. So in this line, the idea of what we find, we come across the idea of purity and close association of light with heavenly beauty. So a close association of light with heavenly beauty is what is hinted at. Remember? Then again, in example 2, open, where we find the words, where we find the line, open unto the fields and to the sky. All bright and glittering, open unto the fields and to the sky. So here again, in this line, the connection of the fields to the sky gives us the celestial quality that elevates the city above the basic beauty. The line clearly hints at the point that the city is not separate from nature. Rather, it is one with it. Remember? Then, to go through more figure of speech used in the poem, we can have Anaphora. Anaphora, remember, where we have the repetition of words or phrases at the beginning of successive clauses, phrases or sentences. For example, never did sun more beautifully steep till this line, never saw I, near saw I, never failed to come so deep. So we find the repetition of never, never, never thrice. That is called anaphora, repetition of words in sentences or phrases. Then we come across climax, where we find the words are arranged in ascending order of importance. For example, here in this particular poem, we find in this line, never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor, valley, rock or hill. So the poet here feels the profound calmness in his heart. So that is the climax. The calmness, the tranquility, the peace is filled by the poet inside his core, inside the core of his heart. We find the use of apostrophe in the very last stage of the poem, where we have this exclamatory sentence like, "Oh God." So this, dear God, the very houses seem asleep and all that mighty heart is lying still. So these two penultimate lines. So what is an apostrophe? Apostrophe is an exclamatory figure of speech, and it occurs at the breaking off from address in the audience. So suddenly the poet is so attracted by the beauty all around, by the majestic beauties all around, that he addresses to God, he apostrophizes God for such a wonderful creation, for such a majestic panoramic view in the city of London at that particular hour of the morning. So these are some of the figures of speech that we come across while going through the lines. I have cited for your benefit. You can go through it, you can remember it, and it will help you to know the poem in detail. Then we will quickly go through the question answer part. In the question answer part, I have divided intentionally the question answer part in three categories. First, in the first place, we have the short answer type questions. Then we have the multiple choice questions that can also be read as the first part, but nothing matters. And then in the last stage, we have the subjective part of the long answer type questions. I have divided the entire question answers in three categories. So let's begin category 1. That is, in other words, SAQ types of questions, the short answer type questions with their model answer. I have set a model answer for you. Your answer may be different from me, but remember, the answer should be contextual. The answer should have relevance to the context. Now, let's quickly go through it. Question number 1. Which city does the poet refer to in the poem Upon Westminster Bridge? In the poem Upon Westminster Bridge, the poet refers to the city of London. Remember, কোন শহরের কথা বলা হয়েছে? লন্ডন শহরের কথা বলা হয়েছে. One thing more, I repeatedly am using English words for your understanding, for your benefit, and that too I am speaking it slowly so that you can be able to understand it at your own, যাতে করে তোমরা নিজেদের মতো করে ইংরেজি শব্দটাকে বুঝতে পারো, এটা উচ্চারণটা চেষ্টা করতে পারো। তার জন্য আমি এর স্পিডটা একটু ইচ্ছাকৃতভাবে স্লোলি বলছি। But remember, you have to learn it, you have to raise your vocabulary power. তোমাদের stock of word বাড়াতে হবে, vocabulary বাড়াতে হবে, and that will also help you in writing portion. যখন তোমরা লিখবে, when you will be answering some comprehension or some writing, you will be writing some passages. These stock of words will help you do that finely. So I'm intentionally using English words for your benefit, remember students. Now let's quickly look on question number 2 in the short answer type question and model answer section. When did the poet view the city? The poet viewed the city in early morning. কখন দেখলেন শহরকে? সেই শহরটিকে, লন্ডন শহরকে প্রত্যুষে, in the early morning, at dawn you can also say. In question number 3, what garment did the city wear? কি পোশাক পরেছিল শহরটি? The city of London, or remember, you have to answer the question in the tense that is used in the question also. That is an important part. You have to first understand the question, then only you can answer it. So here the verb used in the question is wear, but it has been used in its past form. So when it is presented in the past tense, like what garment did the city wear, you have to answer the question in past tense only, and for that you have to choose the verb form in its past form, the verb in its past form. So the city of London or where, or, W-O-R-E, the garment of the splendid beauty of the morning. সেই অবাক করা, সেই বিস্ময়কর সেই সৌন্দর্য, সকালবেলার যে সৌন্দর্য, তার ক্লোথস বা গার্মেন্ট পরেছিল এই লন্ডন শহরে। Now in question number 4, what does the first splendor refer to? প্রথম ঝলক বলতে কি বোঝায়? The expression the first splendor refers to the morning sun rays, সকালের যে সূর্য রশ্মি তাকে বোঝানো হচ্ছে। In question number 5, moving on to question number 5, how does Wordsworth describe the beauty of the morning in the poem? সকালের সৌন্দর্য কিভাবে বর্ণনা করেছেন তিনি এই কবিতায়? In the poem, Wordsworth describes the beauty of the morning as silent, bare, রিক্ত, শূন্য, চতুর্দিকে নীরবতা, নিস্তব্ধতা বিরাজমান। Silence reigns everywhere, চতুর্দিকে বিরাজমান, নিস্তব্ধতা। So moving on to question number 6, how does the river flow in the poem upon Westminster Bridge? নদী কিভাবে প্রবাহিত হচ্ছে এখানে? কোন নদী? Remember, the river Thames. The river flows at his own sweet will, তার নিজের মতো করে খুব সুদিং ওয়েতে সে বয়ে চলেছে, প্রবাহিত, প্রবহমান। In question number 7, how does Wordsworth describe the air in the city? বায়ুমণ্ডলটা কেমন? Smokeless air. Remember the line? So Wordsworth describes the air in the city of London as smokeless. In question number 8, whom does the poet consider dull of soul? Dull of soul বলতে কাকে বোঝাচ্ছেন কবি? কাকে বোঝানো হয়েছে এখানে? The person who can pass by the magnificent morning scenario in the city of London from the Westminster Bridge is considered as dull of soul by the poet. Westminster ব্রিজের উপর থেকে সকালবেলা লন্ডন শহরের এই যে চোখ ধাঁধানো যে দৃশ্য, সিনিক বিউটি, যে প্যানোরামিক ভিউ, এই দৃশ্য অবলোকন না করে, না দেখে যে পাস করবে, যে অতিক্রম করবে, তার মতো বোকা বা অবুঝ দুনিয়াতে আর কেউ নেই, অ্যাকর্ডিং টু দ্য পোয়েট, কবির মতে। Then in question number 9, dear God, the very houses seem asleep. Dear God, what does the poet mean to imply here? The poet here apostrophizes God for such majestic atmosphere in dawn when every house is in profound slumber. যখন গভীর ঘুমে আচ্ছন্ন সমস্ত বাড়ি, মানে সমস্ত লোকজন। Then in question number 10, why does the poet say that the river glideth at his own sweet will? Remember, what is it? Glideth. This is the archaic form of English. This is Old English. So, glideth means glide or glides. প্রবাহিত হওয়া বা প্রবাহ বোঝাতে ব্যবহার করা হয়। Flow. Why does the poet say so? যে নদীটা নিজের মতো করে নিজের মধুর ইচ্ছায়, will means ইচ্ছা, will power, তার নিজের সুইট সুন্দর সেই মধুর ইচ্ছার মতো ইচ্ছায় সে বয়ে চলেছে। কেন এটা কবি বলছেন? The river Thames glides freely because it suffers no movement of the boats or ships in the morning. সকালবেলায় কোনো নৌকো বা জাহাজ চলাচল করছে না, শান্ত গতিতে তাই নদী প্রবহমান। In question number 11, in the short answer type questions section, what appears bright and glittering in the morning sky? The towers, domes, theaters, temples appear bright and glittering in the morning sky, in the morning. Then in the next question, that is question number 12, and that is the end of short answer type question. What is meant by the expression mighty heart? Mighty heart বলতে কি বোঝানো হয়েছে? Remember, heart means heart of the city. That is, the city of London is referred to here. So, mighty means powerful, strong enough. So, by the expression mighty heart, the poet means the most powerful city of London. That is the heart of the city. Then, to have a quick look at the multiple choice set of questions and their answers, I have said for your instance, a few examples, more can be said from this poem, but I have given in my video some of the examples so that you can understand the poem at your own and that to thoroughly remember. So in the multiple choice part, this is also 1 mark question. Let us concentrate on question number 1. The city wears like a garment to the beauty of morning, evening, night or sea. It's morning. So remember, one irrelevant, completely out of point, out of touch answer may be said so as to know whether you have gone through the text or not. So the right answer would be morning, the first option. Then in question number 2, the fairest object to the poet is the city, the sun, the river or the tower. What is it? It's the city. Option number 1. In question number 3, the poet personifies the river Thames as a woman, a masculine, feminine or a neuter thing. Answer is masculine. At his own, the river, remember, recap. The river glided at his own sweet will. That is, masculine form is used. The river is personified as masculine, belonging to masculine gender. পুরুষের সঙ্গে তুলনা করা হয়েছে. In question number 4, the mood of the poem is tragic or comic or nostalgic or tranquil. It's tranquil, shanto, calmness. This is reiterated in the poem, throughout the poem. In question number 5, the poet of the poem upon Westminster Bridge is কে লিখেছেন, কবির নাম কি? William Blake. Several options may be set, may be given. William Blake, William Carey, William Regal or William Wordsworth. It's William Wordsworth, no other than him. In question number 6, the object of the poet's celebration is nature, art, London or Britain. It's the city of London. So option 3 is the right answer. Then in question number, to go through question number 7, we find where from does the poet see the city of London? Where from? কোথা থেকে দেখেছেন? Westminster Bridge থেকে? The ship, the hill, the Westminster Bridge or the tower? It's option number 3. Right answer would be the Westminster Bridge. Then let us move on to question number 8. What kind of poem is upon Westminster Bridge? কি ধরনের কবিতা এটি? A sonnet? Options are a sonnet, a dramatic lyric, an ode or a dramatic monologue. It's a sonnet. Question number 9. The kind of feeling experienced by the poet that he has never experienced before is the feeling of calm, or it is ecstasy, or is it wonder or joy? It's ecstasy. Option number 2, because it feels so ecstatic to have a view of such a wonderful panoramic sight, right? Moving on to question number 10. The poet sees London as part of nature, isolated, alienated from nature, or the nerve center of commerce. Part of nature is the right option. Option number 1 here. Question number 11. The river Thames flows noisily. 4 options again is given. Are given here. Smoothly, violently or brightly. option 2 is the right option. Smoothly, on his own sweet will, remember. And in the last question set from this section, multiple choice questions, MCQs type of questions, is the mighty heart refers to the city of Dhaka or London or Karachi or Kolkata. If we go through the lines, we will be able to understand all these multiple choice and short answer type questions. It is no other than the city of London. Option 2 here. So, that's what multiple choice questions and short answer type questions are. I've said a few examples of these two types of questions. I've also said model answers of those questions. Now I'll be discussing with you the long answer type questions, that is 5-mark question and their model answer. Remember here also that the word limit for you is 100 words. So you have to complete the answer within 100 word limit. So numerous questions can be said from this section also. I have said 2 questions and I've given their answers also for your benefit. One directly the subjective type question and the other the fractional one that deals with 2 fractions in the same question. So split up question this is called. So let us concentrate now on question number 1 on the part of the subjective questions. Earth has not anything to show more fear. So what prompted the poet to say so? কেন কবি এরকমটা বললেন, তাকে ঠেলে দিল এরকম বলার দিকে কোন কোন জিনিসগুলো, মানে কোন কোন বৈশিষ্ট্যগুলো, the physical attributes that led the poet to say so, that earth has not anything to show more fear. কেন তিনি এই কথাটা বলছেন? তার মানে এটা in other words the description of the city of London in the morning. So the poet, while crossing the Westminster Bridge over the River Thames in the early morning, was বিস্মিত হয়ে গেলেন to see the majestic beauty all over. রাজকীয় ঐশ্বর্য, সেই ঐশ্বর্যমণ্ডিত সকালবেলার দৃশ্য দেখে তিনি মোহিত হয়ে গেলেন. He was greatly moved. The landmarks like the towers, domes, theatres, temples, soaked in the morning sunshine, sun rays, so astonished the poet that he was spellbound, and everything looked to him bright and glittering. তিনি এতটাই মুগ্ধ হয়ে গেলেন এই নৈসর্গিক শোভায় যে সমস্ত কিছু তার কাছে মনে হলো যেন সূর্যের আলোতে, সকালের এই সূর্য কিরণে স্নাত এবং খুব উজ্জ্বল লাগছিল, আলো উজ্জ্বল, সূর্যের উজ্জ্বল কিরণে আলোকিত এবং তাদের ঔজ্জ্বল্য ঠিকরে পড়ছিল. That it was glittering, everything was glittering, চকচক করছিল, জলজল করছিল. The smokeless air and the city, free from the din and bustle, filled his heart with profound calmness or tranquility. You can also say তার মনকে তার হৃদয়কে, তার মনকে গভীর শান্তি এনে দিল, শান্তিতে পরিপূর্ণ করে তুলল. সকালবেলার এই ধোঁয়াহীন পরিবেশ, এই বায়ুমণ্ডল এবং লন্ডন শহরের যে চিরাচরিত যে ঘিঞ্জি অবস্থা, যে কনজেশন, ট্রাফিক কনজেশন, সেখান থেকে এই যে মুক্ত অবস্থা, সেই অবস্থার থেকে মুক্ত লন্ডন শহর সকালবেলায়, এই দৃশ্যটি কবির মনে গভীর প্রশান্তি এনে দিল. He felt in his heart তিনি অনুভব করলেন হৃদয়ে the tranquility of the atmosphere, সেই পরিবেশের যে নীরবতা, নিস্তব্ধতা, তিনি শান্তি তিনি ফিল করলেন, অনুভব করলেন। The unexpected transformation of the city of London, অন্য সময় এত ঘিঞ্জি, কিন্তু এই সকালবেলা লন্ডন শহরের এত সৌন্দর্য, এত সুন্দর রূপ, প্রকৃতির ম্যাজিক টাচে, স্পর্শে, জাদুকরী স্পর্শে prompted him to say so, তাকে এমনটি বলতে বাধ্য করল। This is a kind of answer I have said for your instance. Then to go to the second question, that is a split up question. Remember, a sight so touching in its majesty. It's also a 5-mark question. It is split up in 2 parts, 1 plus 4, making 5 in total. What is first part? What is the sight referred to here of 1 mark? And the second part, how does the poet describe the sight? The description of the sight. To answer to the first question, the sight here refers to the city, the view of the city of London from Westminster Bridge, as seen by the poet William Wordsworth along with his sister Dorothy early one morning. যেমনটি কবি তার বোন ডরথির সঙ্গে দেখেছিলেন প্রত্যুষে সকালবেলায় লন্ডন শহরকে, সেই দৃশ্য। দ্বিতীয় প্রশ্ন, সেকেন্ড পার্ট অফ দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন, হাউ ডাজ দ্য পোয়েট ডিসক্রাইব দ্য সাইট? কিভাবে সেই দৃশ্যের বর্ণনা করলেন কবি, করছেন? The entire poem is the description, remember, of the panoramic view of London in the early morning. সকালবেলায় প্রত্যুষে সেই যে নৈসর্গিক শোভা, তার বর্ণনাটা পুরো কবিতাতে রয়েছে, আমরা পাই। The city to the poet looks fairest on the earth, সবচাইতে সুন্দর লাগছে তার কাছে, সুন্দরতম। The ships on the river Thames, towers, domes, temples, all appear dazzling in the smokeless air. ধোঁয়াহীন সেই বায়ুমণ্ডলে সবকিছুই যেন সূর্য কিরণে স্নাত, উজ্জ্বলতার প্রতীক, এক একটি প্রতীক দারুণভাবে ভাস্বর ছিল। The first splendor of morning sunlight overflowing through the valley. So the word here would be splendor. So the first splendor of morning sunlight overflowing through the valley, rock or hill fills the poet's heart with profound tranquility. সেই সমগ্র উপত্যকার মধ্যে দিয়ে পাহাড়, পর্বত, পাথুরে এলাকা, সমস্ত কিছুর মধ্যে দিয়ে সেই সকালের সূর্যের কিরণ যেন প্রতিভাত হচ্ছে, চতুর্দিকে প্রতিফলিত হচ্ছে এবং কবির মনে একটা গভীর প্রশান্তি এনে দেয়। The Thames flows in its sweet will, and Wordsworth apostrophizes God for such a sight, wonderful sight, so touching in its majesty, where every house is in slumber. যে শহরটা এত শক্তিশালী একটি শহর, সেই শহরটাও যেন ঘুমিয়ে রয়েছে, যার প্রতিটি বাড়িতে প্রতিটি লোকই এই সময়টা ঘুমিয়ে রয়েছে। কবি তার একটা পুঙ্খানুপুঙ্খ বর্ণনা আমাদের সামনে থ্রু দিস পোয়েম, এই কবিতার মাধ্যমে উপস্থাপন করেছেন। So these two questions have been said, but numerous questions can also be said, like the description of the city of London in the morning or the justification of the title of the poem. But I guess, and I can guarantee you, the summary along with an in-depth study of the poem line-wise with the figure of speech used you can have a complete grasp. I can guarantee you that you will have a complete understanding of what the poet intends us to give.